Good afternoon and welcome to episode 63 of Apex Instant Tips, brought to you every Friday at 12:05 Eastern Time. I'm Anton, and I feel like I've finally gotten the hang of that. That's the intro Hayden always was giving before. So I'm adjusting to my new role as host and sorting through the thousands of applicants we've had for a co-host position, but I have not yet managed to come up with an actual co-host. But to everybody's great relief, I will say that I have managed to line up a special guest again this week. And so it won't just be me. In fact, I'm glad I got a guest because I didn't have to do any work. So with no further ado, I'm going to introduce this week's special guest, Hayden. Hayden, welcome to Apex Instant Tips.
It is great to be here, Anton, once again.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that being a guest on the show didn't scare you off last week and that you're available to join us this week.
It was a great time last week, and I'm back for more.
Well, fantastic. Welcome again. Well, as I mentioned, I believe that you are presenting the tip as our special guest this week. What do we have for me?
Yeah, so let me cue up the tip. How do you like to manage your application standards? So let's say you have a security standard, like all pages should have an authorization scheme if they're not public. How would you go about enforcing that?
Well, I got to say that highlights my favorite aspect of Apex, and that's that it's metadata driven. And because it's metadata driven, you have the ability to query the underlying metadata about the whole application. And by simply writing SQL, you can do this. But there are tools that make this easier for you. And I've used and like Apex Sec and Apex Project I by United Codes. These tools have a lot of these kind of QA things built into them, and they're extensible. You can add your own or modify your rules, and they essentially query the Apex metadata dictionary.
Well, my tip is about neither one of those applications. It's free, and it's actually a bit of a flash from the past. If we could go ahead and share my screen.
Well, that is one of my favorite words, free.
Yeah. So, yes, veterans of Apex may remember that the app gallery used to include something called the application standard tracker. And I've always loved this application. Hopefully the Apex team will rewrite it to meet their standards, and will re-release it, and it'll once again be available as the in the app gallery. In the meantime, I can recommend that people find an installation of Apex 18 or earlier, download this, and install it in their new Apex version.
And actually, I think we have it hosted somewhere. The download of this. Oh, there it is. Yeah, you can actually go grab it and install. And I'll say that's the other thing I love about Apex is it is amazing to me. I still have applications from the early 2000s that were written in 2000, and they still run in Apex. You know, you can take your 18 and install it into your 20, and there you go.
Absolutely. And yeah, so there's no excuse to not have this application.
Okay, so let me just ask, is that the tip? Are we done, or should we kick off the timer?
Well, let's review what I have. So let me go ahead and kick off this timer. And yeah, so you're invited to group your standards and to your tests into standards. And so I have a standard called generic standards. And in this category, I've identified...
And I'm going to say we're really cheating with that timer, as I see it.
Oh, whoops. And I have conjured up a few rules that I think are sort of generically applicable to all Apex applications. Let's review a few of them, and let's also discuss how I made them. So I mentioned at the top of the hour, pages should have authorization scheme if not public.
Yeah.
That's one example. Pages should have help text. Items should have help text.
I love those. Those are big ones for me.
Yeah. So, and let me clarify, like, what service the application standards tracker is doing for you. It is not writing the metadata queries for you. So you still actually have to do that heavy load of querying the metadata to get it to where you want. And Anton, how would you go about querying the Apex metadata to, for example, take a look at, let's say you wanted to write a query about page authorization schemes?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, it is perhaps the thing I like, that it's metadata driven, and that Apex built with Apex and Apex being metadata driven are the two best parts of the tool. If you go into the builder, you can go look at the list of Apex Application Express views, and that's where all the metadata is available to you, and it gives a description of the view. So in the builder, you'll be, there it is there.
And then, so perhaps you would search pages from this point.
Right, and you might look for page items, whatever it is that you're looking for. And there's actually a view called the Apex Dictionary. And if you select star from Apex Dictionary, you'll get a list of all the views and all the columns within those views, that kind of thing. But
right, so this is a little slow, so I won't waste our 5 minutes on just reviewing the views and how to query them. But so if it's in Apex, it's in the metadata somewhere probably. And
you're going to be able to figure out a query that gets there. And the standards tracker, if I remember, has a syntax to the way those queries are supposed to be written.
That's right. And so just to spare people the inconvenience of having to research how to write it, I'll just share it. So I've written all of my queries as views. It's not a requirement. But for example, here is the view in which I am identifying whether or not pages meet the standard of should have an authorization scheme if not public. The first field in the view should be a pass-fail value, which passes back Y or N if it fails. So I have case when, if it requires authentication and the authorization scheme is null, then it fails.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect.
And then I'll call it the second field here because it's also something to pay attention to. When you're creating your standard, when you're creating your task rather, you're invited to have your report link to the issue. And so you, depending on what you're choosing to link to, the second field needs to be the ID of that value. So in this query, I want to link to the page. And so the second value has to be the page ID. And here I would, let's just confirm this. When I take a look at how I've written this, I've decided to link to the page. And so therefore, my second parameter is the page ID.
Great.
And without further ado, let's take a look at what that standard looks like. So which application should we take a look at? You probably remember them from previous steps.
Yeah, let's choose Markdown in Apex.
Great. And so, and let's take a look at a different standard just for variety. Pages should have help text. So let's take a look at that report. It seems to be doing very badly by that standard.
Yeah, we haven't done so well.
So it looks like only a few pages actually have help text.
Yeah. So,
and most of them don't. Would you agree that the interactive report should probably have help text?
I would guess so.
And so I can just link to it by clicking the fail button here.
Oh, and then you go put help text on that page.
Yeah. It's a little slow, and I only have 33 seconds. While that's thinking, I also have the alternative option, which is so critical that I can mark as valid. So I can identify that something is a false
the global page doesn't need help text. So let's mark that as valid, right? And then we don't have to worry.
Now it shows up under false negatives. And so, so now from this point forward, I don't have to constantly see it as a failure. And I can essentially clear my inbox of known issues. And so there's no reason to not have an actually informative list of failures.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a great tip. I think we all can improve our quality by applying some standards. And the more standards that you can automate like this, the better. This is great.
Agreed. Yeah, so being able to organize and identify your standards and then put them in a report and a list that you can essentially work down, to me is such an important way to actually supervise and enforce your standards.
Yeah, I love this. This is the kind of tip that everyone can make use of, I think.
But I'll tease that this is part one of this tab.
Yeah.
We will come back and discuss this more because I would actually like to discuss how this application could be expanded to also supervise your PL SQL, your database objects.
I noticed I noticed a little something in a drop-down list that isn't usually part of the Apex Standards app. In the drop-down list, I saw application, page, item, group, list, a whole bunch of things. But I saw at the very bottom a type that I've never seen before in that application,
Yeah.
Hayden.
It was source code. So what we'll come back and deliver is how to also monitor your source code through Apex application standards tracker. We'll talk about how we can apply queries against the PL scope utilities and the other database metadata views to make sure that your database objects and your package coding, your PL SQL coding standards are being observed.
You know what I love about this tease is that it means that you'll have to come out again as a special guest.
You can count on
that. So if you just came in for 5 minutes, do all those things, subscribe, bang the bell, all that. But I've got a couple minutes, Hayden, if you do, I've got a wisdom of the week. I'm hoping you have something to talk about. If anybody has questions about this, we'd love to take those questions. Hayden, there's a claim here that you're not a robot, but I'm not convinced that has been established fully. Well,
I think that was a Terminator reference because the previous one was "I'll be back."
Oh, right, yeah. Oh, he is a robot. Now I see. I misread it. I think you're right. So, all of that said, I have a wisdom of the week, and this wisdom of the week really comes from Mishka. She said this to me yesterday regarding something, and I'm just going to give 30 seconds of quiet for people to read it.
Yeah, I'm also seeing this for the first time.
And so is that enough time, Hayden?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have to say, I'm guilty of having said to people, "Oh, come on, you've never heard of that before." But I like this approach so much better. They're right. If somebody hasn't heard something before, it's your lucky day because you get to show them what it is. It's cool. I
completely.
As I've gotten older, maybe I've gotten a little softer, but I like it a lot.
Yeah, who doesn't want to see the world anew from virgin eyes?
Yeah. And I saw a Twitter thread that referenced this as it's related to software coding, and the whole idea that if you're doing a code review and you see that somebody's done code, let's say, the wrong way, it's not because they're intentionally doing it the wrong way. It's because they don't know, right? They haven't come across the right way to do it, and so I think you can apply that same thought to today's their lucky day. I get to show them the right way to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Interesting. In the next video, can you talk about templates and themes? That's another good topic. I have some thoughts about that very topic. We'll see when we can squeeze that in.
Maybe we would even want to enforce some standards to those applications.
Yeah, that could be. Hayden, I understand that you have an off-topic tip as well this week.
I do. So I noticed that in the last Apex Office Hours hour, they had a series of tips, and almost every single one of them included some keyboard shortcuts. And so I've started looking into them. And while I was at it, I thought, let's expand it to beyond just Apex keyboard shortcuts. Let's actually have screen manipulation keyboard shortcuts. So my off-topic tip is to, if you're on a Mac, and I'm sure there's a PC equivalent, if we could share the link to rectangleapp.com. And so this is, let me demonstrate it. So if you could share my screen. So were I to try to, so just with my keyboard, I can move my screen about. And
Super fast.
I can open a new screen. I can go to rectangleapp.com, move that to the side, and now I can move things.
I'm always using my mouse to retile my screen.
Yeah.
So I love this. I think that's, and I often have multiple desktops open, and switching between desktops is easy. But if you keep just the right things on one desktop and rearrange them like this, that's great.
Absolutely, and of course, it's not it's not application specific. So whatever the application, you can manipulate it with these commands.
Great. So rectangleapp.com.
Rectangle.
And is it an app that you just run? How does it work?
Well, now I'm out of my depth.
But you install it and run it. Is that
the
it?
software that you install in your computer?
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, got it. All right. Well, I think we have a couple of requests for upcoming topics and a great off-topic tip. That pretty much covers it for today. People have wasted a perfectly good 16 minutes listening to us. But I hope you enjoy your weekend and do all the things. Like, subscribe, all that.
See you guys later.
Thanks again, Hayden.